Welcome to Unit 7. This is going to be talking about, what is this talking about? Personality. We're going to be taking a look at personality and also look at intelligence and how to measure intelligence and all that fun stuff. So here we go. And today we'll be doing a little intro to Freud, taking a look at the id, the ego, the superego, and the psychosexual stages of development that are according to Freud. By the way, you're going to hear me say that a lot in this next little bit of this video. All right, so let's talk about personality. What is it? What can it do for you? Your personality is basically your characteristics and how they've developed over time. It's how you think, it's how you perceive, it's how you learn, it's how you feel, it's how you behave. It's the essence of who you are. It's what makes you. And again, people have all different types of personalities. Some could be introverted, some could be extroverted, some could be very much got to be around people, some sort of want to be away from people, some will be in leadership positions, some more followers. There's all these sort of different types of personality. Some are more, want to be the supporter, some are more the listener, some of them are of a leader, so there's all these different things. And then the tricky things is when we talk about a strong personality, because that's where it's like, oh, look at him, he's powerful, he has a strong personality. If he's powerful, if he's aggressive, abrasive, and powerful all the time, it's a strong personality. But if sometimes he's shy and then sometimes he's strong, it's actually a weak personality. So a strong personality is a consistent personality. Are you the same person in front of your friends that you are in front of your family, that you are when you're at school, as you are when you're at work, and as you are by yourself? And again, this gets back to that philosophical question we asked earlier in the semester: which one of you is the true you? And according to theories of personality, there's 4 basic perspectives. We could probably break it into more than 4, but in general, there's 4 different perspectives of personalities. There's a psychoanalytic perspective of personality, which we're going to talk about here for the next couple of days, which basically says everything that you are is the built up of your childhood. And what makes us decide what we want to do in life are all these sort of unresolved issues of our childhood. And if you don't go back and untie those knots, you can never move forward. And we'll talk about that a lot more when we get to therapy as well. Second type of perspective of personality is the humanistic, which is Maslow and the big pyramid. We all just want to get that self-actualization, become the best us we can be. Just because I'm going to be the best me I can be doesn't mean I'm going to be the best person in the world. If I want to be the best baseball player I can be, doesn't mean I'm going to be the center fielder for the Yankees. I just want to be the best me I can be. The trait perspective, where we just basically take an inventory. Okay, in this situation, you do this. In that situation, you do that. And these people think of you like this, and you think of yourself like that. Well, there you are. And so it just kind of gives you an inventory. And by the way, these are the very popular online person. Which Disney princess are you? You're not a princess. I'm sorry. You're not a Disney princess. Those are terrible tests. They're terrible tests because no matter how you answer it, you're still a princess. I take it I'm a princess. I'm not a princess. Yeah, maybe sometimes I feel like a princess, but I'm not a princess. Okay, it just doesn't happen. Then we have the social cognitive perspective. And the social cognitive perspective is kind of what it says it is. How we think and who we are is shaped by our environment. So we choose who's in our environment, then our environment turns around and shapes us. All right. And the other question that tends to ask is, how stable is your personality? How consistent is your personality over the years? And what happens is, as we get older and older and older, our personality tends to sort of stabilize a little bit. But in reality, we kind of, I'm 53. I just went to my 35th year high school reunion, and the thing I got more than anything was I haven't changed that much. Now, obviously, hopefully I've become smarter, but I'm still kind of the same guy. I'm still I don't do some of the stupid things I did, but I'm still kind of the same guy. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about these approaches to personalities. We could get into the evolutionary, the good personalities move forward. This is part of the trait perspective, psychoanalytic, psychodynamic, kind of the same thing there. So we're going to be taking a look at all these, but these little readings right here, you can go back and take a look. All right, so let's talk about the psychoanalytic perspective. Psychoanalysis. I cannot talk about psychology without talking about Freud. Now, why do I need to talk about Freud? Well, one reason I need to talk about Freud is because Freud warms me up. Freud makes me happy. I'm trying to reach here under my desk right now. Here he comes. Here he comes. There it is. This is part of how Freud warms me up. These are my Sigmund Freud slippers. Just sort of put there in there, my little Freud slippers. I got my little Freud slip of the tongue slips for my Freudian slips right here. Got that. You can't talk about psychology without in some way talking about Sigmund Freud. But we've got to keep Freud in perspective, okay? What Freud basically said at the turn of the century, this is a guy who originally studied nervous disorders, but he couldn't, for a lot of people who came in with these nervous disorders, he couldn't find anything physical with them, physically wrong with them, psychosomatic, whatever. You would use hypnosis, and when using hypnosis, people were suggestible and people were sort of letting down their guard a little bit and sort of telling these stories to him. And he started to believe that there's all this repressed stuff inside of us, and it's the repressed stuff inside of us that gets us to do things. And there's a little battle that's sort of going on within us. And he said a lot of it is rooted in childhood sexuality. So Freud is basically saying that we're not really responsible for a lot we do because it was our childhood. It's unresolved issues. And a lot of things aren't your fault. They're things that your parents did to you. And you can blame. And there's just these urges, and we all have them. And you shouldn't be ashamed of them. And when you're dreaming, and all dreams mean something, and this untaken care of sexual desires. And so Freud is talking about sex in the early 1900s, while people are still wearing swimsuits that come down to their ankles. Needless to say, it's going to get your name in the paper. And he liked to get his name in the paper. Freud was a bit of an egomaniac. He liked the fact that his name was out there. And Freud came first, when it comes to all of these psychoanalytic theories or all these psychology theories about personality and who we are and what we are. And before you could actually look at the brain and see what the brain does, he comes up with these theories. And the tricky thing with Freud's theories is they're almost impossible to disprove because it's all in the unconscious. How can you measure what someone's not thinking about? And it's all about sex and whatever. And if you ever deny that it is, they'll go, oh, you're just repressing whatnot. So when he's talking about sex and he's talking about these things, it's going to get him a lot of attention. And we also have to keep in mind that Sigmund Freud did enough cocaine to kill a horse early on in his career. So we got to kind of keep all of this in perspective. And by the way, I'm not saying that to sensationalize Freud and to discredit him. I mean, there was cocaine in actual Coca-Cola in 1905. It's a different sort of era. All right. But Freud comes up with this idea of what is called psychoanalysis. And psychoanalysis is what a lot of us typically think of when we think of psychotherapy, of where you go and you sit on a couch and you look back and a doctor writes a bunch of things and tell me about your mother and all these other things that come out of it. But the trick with psychoanalysis, where some psychotherapy, you sort of figure out your own thing, but psychoanalysis, it is your job to just talk, stream of thought, whatever. And then the therapist's job is to analyze you, hence the analysis and psychoanalysis. You go to a therapist, then it is the job of the therapist to analyze what you're saying and come up with whatever the problem might be. So the key is to get the patient to talk about what they're not consciously thinking about, get them to relax. pull on some strings, see what comes out, everything else. And again, it's up to the therapist to interpret this data. But the other trick with that is I could go to 5 different therapists, and 5 different therapists could come to 5 different conclusions. Which one is right? And if a therapist, again, if a therapist comes up with a conclusion I don't like, and I go, no, that's not it. I'm not in love with my mind. Oh, you're just repressing. I'll give you an example. This would be me if I went to a psychoanalyst. I've never been to therapy. I probably have. I should have gone, but maybe you still should go. Never been to one. But if I went, let me tell you a story about when I was a kid. I'm 5, 6 years old, 5, 6-year-old kid. And as a typical 5, 6-year-old little boy, I like to play with fire. I'm not a pyromaniac. I was a little kid. Little kids like to burn things. Boys like to burn things. This is why when my son Duncan was 9 years old and he lit the back of the neighborhood on fire, I just kind of turned to my wife, hey, boys burn things. So I'm 5 or 6 years old. I'm walking around with my little lighter. Again, it's the 70s. Why little boys? I don't know. But I had a lighter and I'm walking around the house looking for stuff to burn as my parents had gone out for the evening of relaxation and just wanted to be away. My sisters were supposed to watch me. Of course they weren't. So as I'm walking around looking for things to burn, in the front room, very green room, and then there's this green shelf and there are these white statues, these replicas of Greek and Roman gods, goddesses, whatever. So I decide, right on the side, I came to this question in my head as a 6-year-old boy. And the question was, while looking at these statues, does stone burn? Can you burn stone? I never thought of it before. So I grabbed one of these Greek Roman god goddess reproductions, and I happened to grab, I think it was Aphrodite, if I'm not mistaken. It was kind of, she was pushing down a little blanket, and so her bottom was exposed. So I took the lighter and I burned her butt, just sort of, and it went from white to black. And I don't even, the lighter didn't make a sound, but I'm making it sound. So I guess, or whatever. So I burned her butt, and the butt went from white to black. And I went, okay. And I put it back on the shelf. Then I grabbed a little statue of Venus where she had no arms. She could possibly defend herself. So I grabbed Venus and I took my little lighter, 5, 6-year-old kid, and I burned her boob. I just went, and her boob was now black. And I went, okay. And I put it back up on the shelf. and I walked away. Didn't think anything of it. Just walked away. Went back up to my room, read a Mad magazine, called it a night. My parents come home. And when my parents come home, I can hear the car pull up. I can hear the door open. And about 10 minutes afterwards, I hear from downstairs, Jason, what did you get down here? So I come walking down. The steps. There's one way. And then when you turn the steps, it opens up to what is the front room of the house. And because I thought, oh, well, they missed me and they'd like to say hello. Maybe they bought me a present. So I come, it's extra fluid for my lighter. So I come walking down the steps and I make the turn. And when I make the turn, there is my mother on this gold couch holding these 2 statues of women who have been burned. And there is my father staring at me with a look of disappointment, which I've grown used to over the years and would continue to see. And he looks at me with this look and goes, what the hell were you thinking? Why did you do this? Now, here's where you can use your expertise in psychology. I'm a 5 or 6-year-old kid, lack of frontal lobe. So as a typical 5 or 6-year-old kid, when my father said, what are you thinking? My response was, I don't know. I don't know. Now here's a trick. I tell that story to a psychoanalyst. And you know what the psychoanalyst would say? He'd go, well, you're obviously in love with your mother. And I go, what? No, you're in love with your mother. Because here's the thing. You want to marry your mom, and you're upset with your dad because your dad is your rival to your mother's affection, and you're upset. And as a matter of fact, dad is the one who brought these statues into the house and put them on the shelf to rival your mother's beauty. So you took it upon yourself to destroy these statues because nothing will rival the beauty of your mother. And now you're upset with your dad and you want to kill your dad because he just wants to protect the statues and not protect the mother like you want a mother, and she should go off and marry you. That's what a psychoanalyst would tell me. And I'd go, no, of course that's not what I want. But then you go, well, you're just repressing. You're not willing to deal with it. So you can see when you leave your judgment up to somebody else, it can get a little bit bizarre, to say the least. Because according to psychoanalysis, there's 3 levels of where we do things. There's the conscious level, the preconscious, and the unconscious. The conscious level is everything going on right now in your mind going, oh my God, Porter's in love with his mother. That is your conscious thought. Your preconscious thought is stuff that you could get to pretty easily. What's the capital of Texas? Austin. Pulled it right out. Pretty easy, kind of on top of the surface. What you had for dinner yesterday. That is in your preconscious. Your unconscious, on the other hand, according to Freud, is everything that's ever happened to you in your life. And it's a reservoir of thoughts, wishes, feelings, memories, many of them unacceptable. And just things that we try to repress, things that we try to not think about, but things that just sort of pop up and we think about them anyways. You know, when you're sitting in church and you're behind that guy and his bald spot is right there, and you're just thinking to yourself, what if I just took my hand? What if I just took my hand, looked right there and just smacked him on the head? I mean, you're not going to do it. But why do you have that thought? Why do you have that thought? You think you're better than him? Porter, you, all your hair, you think you're better than him? You think you got to shove it in his face? You think you got to shove it in? Oh, you think you're better than me sitting in front of me at church? I'll go smack you in your bald, look at my hair. According to Freud, it's all rivalry and everything that's going on, and all this stuff, we're not aware of them, but they control our behavior. How many times have you gotten to the end of the day and go, why did I let that bother me? Why did I say that? Why did I react like that? According to Freud, it's everything that's ever happened in your life. And jokes are the acceptable ways to show these repressed thoughts. You know, when someone, you ever told a joke before? And the joke, you throw it out there and it gets a laugh, it's great. But you ever told a joke and nobody laughs? And it has to immediately be followed by, oh, sorry, just kidding. You know, it's the people who say things like, hey, you know, I'm not a racist, but you're a racist. But you're trying to get that thought out in some sort of acceptable ways. It's all this crap in our unconscious. It's just bubbling. Hey, you know, maybe a virus is a good idea. Maybe it helped in the population. You know, stop the global warming. You know, that's a terrible thought. But those thoughts that are in our mind or whatever, just this is the thing that we usually try to repress. So the job of a psychoanalyst is to just get you to talk and talk and talk and talk, and eventually you're going to get to whatever that problem is. The Freudian slip will happen. You know, the story I told you guys about earlier of my wife calling me by her ex-husband's name. It's a little slip of the unconscious. Anytime a person says, you know, something and they go, ooh, I didn't mean to say that. According to Freud, we should never apologize. We should never apologize. Because everything we say, we mean. We only apologize when we get in trouble for something. You know, somebody says something and we're going, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say that. I've now reflected and I've learned better. No, you meant to say that. You're only apologizing because it didn't go over so well. You know, when a person calls their current boyfriend or girlfriend by the name of the ex-boyfriend or girlfriend, that's looked at as a Freudian slip. When in reality, what you're starting to do is compare your current relationship to that past relationships. According to Freud, there's no accidents, none. But let's keep Freud in perspective. Research has shown that if 2 words share a vowel and both make sense in the same sentence, there's a good chance that the words will swap due to the sound. It's gestalt. They sort of just slip in there, you know? So Freud, we got to take with a grain of salt. But again, something a psychoanalyst may do is a thematic apperception test like this. You take someone and see, they go stare at this. Little boy staring at the violin. What do you see going on there? Think to yourself, what do you see going on? Just think, what is he doing? Why is he staring at the violin? Typical responses. I mean, think of, why is he staring at the violin? Why is he not playing it? Who told him to be there? All these other things. And then what happens is, as you stare at this little boy on a violin, I've done this for years with students, typical answer a student will have is, his violin's broken. He wants to play it. He wants to do well at it, but he can't because it's broken. And if he can't do it well, he's not going to play it at all. That's what's in the boy's mind. But he'd love to play it, but he just doesn't have the equipment or the tools to play it. He's very frustrated by that. So if I had a patient that said that, I would turn around and I would look at that patient and I go, oh, really? Well, it seems like you don't have all the tools that you want in your life to make you more successful. And you've become frustrated by that. If only your parents would buy you the better phone. If only you had the better laptop. If only you had the better car, you would get the dates. But since you don't have the good stuff, that's what's holding you down. So what the hell? I'm not even going to ask anybody out on a date if I don't have the proper car or the proper clothes or the proper, if I'm not provided the proper tools, why should I even get involved in the game? I'm only going to fail. So why take a chance without this proper stuff? So we take our own little issues, those, whatever else, and we place it on these things. It's the reason why our mirror neurons will cry when you're watching somebody win America's Got Talent or whatever, because you feel like that's you winning right there. And this empathy, and we identify with it. And again, other thematic apperception tests could be this. There's another one right there where we take our own thing and we place it on there. All right. So again, Freud's psychoanalytic perspective, and the whole thing of this iceberg. There's a thoughts at the top and then thoughts deep down at the bottom, but there's more thoughts at the bottom than there are at the top, and our bottom thoughts are really what get us going. And according to Freud, there's basically a battle between three. There's a battle between three different parts of our personality. One part is what is called the id. And the id is the little 1-year-old in you. The id is a little, I just want what I want and forget about the cost of it. The id doesn't want a piece of cake. It wants 8 pieces of cake. It doesn't care that it's going to spoil your dinner or add weight. I just want the cake. It just wants what it wants. The id is the part of you that just wants to say what you want to say and don't care how it's going to affect anyone. You just want what you want. The id is, you see the girl walk down the hallway and you go, I want her for my girlfriend. So you grab her. You can't do that. That's a crime. But the id just wants what it wants. It doesn't care what the cost is. It's irrelevant. Lust, desires, impulsiveness. And in terms of energy, this is what is referred to as our libido. It's every bad thought we've ever had. And again, like smacking the guy in the head, we're not going to do it. I'm not going to sit in the middle of the church and while the pastor's going up there, I'm not going to sit there and go, you're full of crap. I don't believe you. Get up and walk out. I'm not going to do it. I've had thoughts of it. So why do I have those thoughts? Why do I have them? And when we're a little kid, we're all id. When the 1-year-old is crying, he's crying because he's hungry. He's not thinking, you know what, maybe mom's had a bad day. He just wants the bottle in his mouth and he's going to cry until he gets it. So the id, until we get what we want, it's going to haunt us in our dreams and go, look at this in our dream. Wasn't that fun? And it's just going to sort of push us towards those particular things. And again, these bad behaviors, these bad thoughts, these immoral things, we're not going to do them. But why am I thinking about them? That's the id. The superego on the other side of the equation, the superego is the moral you. It is the good you. It is the righteous you, which, by the way, gets up into your consciousness. Gets up in here into your consciousness as well, because you want other people to see this perfect idealized version of you. But the superego, as much as the id gives us tension because we can't get what we want and sometimes depression, the superego has anxiety when we get what we want. sitting there enjoying the cake, really enjoying that cake. You know, you're going to have to go to the gym and take off that weight, you know, sitting there eating the cake. You know, there's children in the insert third world nation here, country starving as you sit there and enjoy your cake. You know, how dare you enjoy your cake? The super ego is when you go out on a date and you're with my girlfriend, Melissa, and you know, and you're having a good time on your date. In the back of your mind, your super ego is going, you know what, your best friend Tommy's sitting at home all by himself right now, really enjoying your date. What, Tommy's at home by himself? How can you enjoy yourself when your friends aren't having fun, when they're going through? You like it? You liking the good time, boy? While he's there having, you know what you should, you know what you should do? You should set Tommy up with your girlfriend. You should give him your girlfriend. That's what you should do. No, I got to take care of things. But again, the superego is constantly the little Jimmy the Cricket with Pinocchio, constantly, not letting us enjoy anything. And it gives us anxiety about it. And again, we talked about this in our dreams. You know, the id in our dreams does all these bad things. And so when we wake up, it's like, hey, that was pretty fun. Look, we're not in jail anymore. It's pretty great. Fantastic, right? But the superego in our dreams is the part that knows that we told the lie. And when we go to sleep, it's going, you know that lie you told everyone else. Here's the lion chasing you. The lion is going to catch up with you. You don't have any clothes on. You're in the middle of biology class. That's the superego, basically punishing us, not letting us enjoy anything. So then it's the job of the ego to mellow out these two knuckleheads. How do I satisfy the id, yet not offend the superego and go about my life? Because the ego has to live in reality. The ego is who we are. So again, I got to satisfy the needs and the wants of the id, not offend the superego, or I'm going to feel anxiety about it and go about my life. Let's say you get home and you're hungry, you know, and you want a cookie. You want a cookie and you look in the cupboard and there's a bag of cookies unopened, but it's not yours. Not your bag of cookies, but you really like cookies. Now, let's say they're Fig Newtons. The id is going, I want them all. I want all the Fig. I just want to open up the sleeve of Fig Newtons and just like a Pez dispenser, just right down. I want them all. I want every one of those Fig Newtons because I'm hungry. I want it. I don't care about the cost. I don't care this, but I want all the Fig Newtons. Newton time. Superego is going, those are not your Fig Newtons. How would you feel if somebody ate your Fig Newtons? You'd be hurt. You'd be devastated. How dare you? How dare you? It might be for someone's birthday. It might have been special. That might have been the last food that their mother ever bought for them, and they're saving it, and it was all this anxiety. So then you're so hungry. So what your ego does is goes, you know what? I'm going to take like 2 Fig Newtons. I'm going to take 2 of them. 2 of them. They'll satisfy the id because I got a little Fig Newton in me. And then I'll tape like $1 onto it. I'm paying $1 for 2 Fig Newtons. Take $1 for the whole bag. I'm giving you $1 just for 2. So that satisfies the superego because I've made that person's life better. This is the job of the ego, to constantly get these two knuckleheads to stop wrestling with one another in your head. And with Freud, okay, get ready for this. Freud, just like Piaget, just like Erickson, just like Kohlberg, Freud also talked about stages of personality development, what happens at birth and what goes on through our childhood up through puberty. Freud believed that everything that we are and everything that we become and all of our development is basically based on unresolved sexual urges and desires of little kids. Now, again, you can't prove this, but you can't disprove it. And there's just enough of it that seems just a little bit true that you go, I don't know. You know, so Freud basically said that the way a child negotiates these stages has a profound effect on who we become as an adult, which goes back to Erickson and goes back to Piaget. You know, the child who learns to be loved at 2 can be a loving 22-year-old. And Freud also said it was different from boys and girls. Now, again, homosexuality, transgender, all this stuff, we're talking about 120 years ago, when that's not really in mainstream studies. As a matter of fact, a lot of this stuff we still don't know about today because it's been more accepted and out in the open. And it's going to take a while to have a lot of studies done on things like that. Freud's ideas were a bit radical, and there's no denying he's had an impact on psychology because he was first. Because he was first. And again, this stuff can have an impact on attachment and everything else, but we got to compare the fact to the fiction. So, anyways, he says there's psychosexual stages, and the stages of development during which the id is seeking the pleasure. It's all about arousal and pleasure. And then the superego is all about punishment. So we got to get through these psychosexual stages. And again, similar to Erikson, Piaget, Kohlberg, but the main exception is Freud goes, it's all about sex. Everything's about sex. Everything you do is about sex. According to Freud, everything you do is about sex. Everything. Why are you wearing that shirt? Because you're trying to attract people. You're trying to attract people because you want the sex. Everything you do is about sex. Why'd you take a shower this morning? So you'd be more attractive, so you get sex. Why are you studying psychology right now to the best of your ability? Why are you going to do well on your next test? Well, I'm going to do well on my next test because I can get a good grade. Because if I get a good grade, I get to go to a good college. I get to go to a college. I'm going to get a good job. I get a good job. I get paid a lot of money. I get paid a lot of money. It's going to attract someone. I attract someone. I get the sex. Everything is about sex, according to Freud. You're going to hear me say according to Freud a lot because a lot of this is BS. All right, so take it stage by stage by stage. Stage one, according to Freud, is what is called the oral stage. This is birth to 18 months. This is when we've got the rooting reflex, the grasping reflex, the sucking reflex, and everything else. We can explain this using modern science, but Freud in the early 1900s is going, well, the baby is putting everything into its mouth because it gets an inherent sexual gratification from putting things into its mouth. And when things are taken out of its mouth, it gets very upset and it starts crying because the id has taken over the little baby. I want that in my mouth because I enjoy that. Now, of course, the reason a kid's putting something in their mouth is because they're teething, because they're teething. Sucking's a natural thing. Rooting's a natural thing. But no, according to Freud, it's because they're getting an inherent sexual satisfaction from it. Now, again, there's no way to prove this. There's no way to disprove it either. I can't walk up to a baby. Hey, baby, are you really enjoying that bottle? There's no way. But then Freud takes this and he kind of ties it to adulthood, because what he says is if you do not properly get through a stage, you have what is called a fixation, because each stage has its battles. And I know that's a really disturbing picture right there. I'm with you. Okay, but each stage has its battles. And if the battle is not completely won during the stage of development, some of that libido and energy is left behind. The mother who took the bottle away before they were ready to complete the oral stage, they have a fixation on that particular thing. We go back here. You chew on your nails. You put your pen in, you chew on a pen. You find yourself smoking cigarettes, vaping, Freudian cigars. Do you find yourself with your hair in your mouth, anything else, constantly chewing gum, overeating? Well, according to Freud, you have an oral fixation, because what happened was you had that bottle taken away before you wanted that bottle taken away. And because you had that bottle taken away before you wanted it taken away, you become an adult and you go, I'll put it in my mouth. What I want to put in my mouth, mommy, you can't take it away. I'll do it. I'll eat what I want to eat and all these things. And what you do is you regress back to that earlier stage and you try to take over. Again, the person who drinks too much, smokes too much, all these things, anything going into your mouth, according to Freud, is because you didn't properly get through this stage. Again, you can't prove it, you can't disprove it, because it's all in the unconscious. The second stage, according to Freud, is what is called the anal stage. This is 1.5 to 3. And again, just like we talked about with Erikson, just like we talked about with Piaget, 1.5 to 3 is when the kid hears the word no for the first time. And that's a little bit traumatic. You can't just do whatever you want to do. You can't just sleep whenever you want to sleep. You can't just eat whenever you want. You got to wait. It's time. And the big sort of control factor going on at this time, according to Freud, is what is called toilet training. When you're a little baby, you want to go, I go, someone will be around to change this. Go, no, you got to wait. You got to wait. So you're starting to curb the child's freedom. You're starting to curb what they're allowed to do. And as a result, this sort of this struggle, the child becomes fascinated with it. And this is why kids are kind of fascinated with toilet bowls and flushing things down the toilet or whatever. The natural wants and desires are curbed for the first time. And if it's not properly resolved, what happens is, now you're told you can't do whatever you want whenever you want. You got to hold it. You got to wait. Now, this is the kid. When the parents don't go check on the room becomes a mess. I'll show you. I'll put it wherever I want. Or it's the adult whose apartment is a mess, keeps things out of control because these are my things and I'll leave them a mess. You can't tell me to pick up everything. According to Freud, we go to regression. Now, Freud would also mention that there are some kids who love the anal stage. There are some kids who get to 2-3 years of age, and the 3 years of their life has just been chaos. What? There's no lunchtime, there's no dinner time. It's just whenever I want it. They don't like that. They love organization. They love structure. And these are people who are referred to as anally retentive. Everything's got to be in a pocket protector, perfectly highlighted, different color highlighters for different things, because you need the order, as opposed to the kid who's regressing, who is rejecting the order, according to Freud. Then we get to stage 3. Hold on. Stage 3 is 3 to 6. And from 3 to 6, hold on from here. 3 to 6 is where boys and girls start to discover that boys and girls are different. They're different. Boys have things that girls don't, and girls have things that boys don't. And Freud argued that this is the time when they realize, with this physical difference, that girls feel inferiority towards boys. And this is what Freud referred to as penis envy. This was referred to as penis envy because the little girl who discovered at the age of 3, 4, 5 that there are some people who have penises and I don't have one. She has penis envy. So she is going to spend the rest of her life, according to Freud, looking for the penis to complete her life. And she gets very upset with her mother because her mother gave her birth but never gave her a penis. So she's got to spend the rest of her life finding a penis, and her life will not be complete until the penis is there. Well, of course, take it with a man to come up with that theory. Now, again, we'll talk a couple lectures down the road about how this has been rejected wholeheartedly. And as a matter of fact, some people make the argument that men feel inferior to women because men can't give birth while women can. Now, the other weird thing about is, if you need more weirdness, the other weird thing about the phallic stages, this is where Freud comes up with what is called the Oedipus complex. And the Oedipus complex takes us back to Greek mythology. And it basically is a story of Oedipus who loved his mother, and loved his mother to the extent where he wanted to get rid of his father and marry his mother. And there's a similar idea between the daughter and the father, which is known as the Electric complex. And this is all happening at an unconscious level. This is why there is a rivalry between the boy and the dad, and there's a rivalry between the daughter and the mother. And again, as much as I say, because just that idea of, ooh, gross, oh my dad, oh my mom, no, ooh. But then we think, I dated this one guy and he really did seem kind of a dependent relationship on his mother. I dated this one girl and her dad. Or you date the girl who wants to date the bad boy, because if I date the bad boy, then that's going to get my daddy's attention, because daddy's going to say no one's good enough for my little girl. Oh, there's the man I always loved. There's just enough little nuance into it where you sort of go, but it's complete crap. It really is kind of complete crap. But at the same time, nobody's going to ever love a boy as much as his mother does. That is the first love he knows. It's kind of his reality of love. And there is no one more protective of a daughter than a father in a proper relationship. Assuming that the daughter and the father have a good relationship and the son and the mother have a good relationship, that is the standard bearer. But this idea that there is a rivalry is a little bit sort of strange. But again, Freud says because of this rivalry, there is no real fight between a 5-year-old boy and his 29-year-old father, because it's not really a fair fight. So the boy goes, well, I can't defeat my father to get my mother's love. So what I would do is I will become like my father so I can get a woman like my mother. And that's sort of what you're looking for. My dad likes sports. I'll like sports too, because then I'll get a woman like my mother, because the girl I'll be with will want someone who likes sports, whatever. Same thing, the girl will identify with the mother. You know, if mom attracted dad by doing these certain things, I'm going to be like mom. And again, divorce can be a tricky thing in this as well, you know, where there could be a little rivalry. You know, mom and dad broke up, dad goes away, little girl very upset with mom, you made my Prince Charming go away. And there's a lot of sort of weird psychobabble stuff that can go on with this. But that's all in the phallic stage. Then we get to stage 4. Stage 4 is what is known as the latency stage. This is kind of a cop out right here, where everything was this pushing sexual desires. He just basically goes, yeah, from 6 to puberty, your libido just sort of checks out. All that sexual desire that you supposedly had at the age of 3, gone. And now all that energy is just put into being the better you can be. You're redirecting your sexual impulses into being the best you can be. Boys and girls start to segregate. Girls segregate on their own. Boys segregate on their own. Neither of the two shall get with one another because of cooties and, you know, little circle, little dot. Now I got my cootie shot, the vaccination that all kids need. So there is a separation. Now, again, there could be some conflict. There could be the boy who likes to hang out with the girls. You know, there could be the girl who likes to play sports, the guy who likes to play with little dolls. They're action figures. They're dolls. I got a bunch of them sitting on the shelf right there. They're not action figures. They're toys. But yeah, this idea that the boys and girls put everything into being a boy and a girl. And then you get to stage 5, and stage 5 is the genital stage. And now you've hit puberty. And again, this is where everything becomes about the sex, according to Freud. Now you've developed your personality. You're 12, and this is all you're ever going to be for the rest of your life. It's this person. You have fully developed into a full-blown adult now that you got a little bit of hair on your chinny chin chin, according to Freud. So again, this leads a lot to be desire. But why do we follow Freud? Well, first off, it's very warm and cushy on my feet. But another reason we follow Freud is because Freud was first. You know, he was the first one. And with that anchoring idea, yeah, you got to disprove it. Give me something better. Give me something else. Prove to me he's wrong. So he kind of sticks in. He's interesting. He's fascinating. And there's just enough people that believe him in it, that and enough case studies that go with it, that people give it a little bit of a thought, maybe a little bit of too much thought as well. All right. So that gets us into Freud. We're going to continue on with psychoanalytic theory. Next lecture, we will talk about defense mechanisms.